Hi, I'm Scott McLean from Trance Music Mastery. In this video, I will show you how Adam Sabo created a pad sound like the one heard in White Empire original mix by Giuseppe Ottaviani. The sound that Adam came up with sounds like this. Okay, and let me go ahead and walk through the MIDI clip. Now, at first glance, this may seem complicated, but it's not too bad. So if you just look at the lower set of notes, these two notes, they are one octave apart. So we have an F2 and an F3, and then the next note is G sharp 2, G sharp 3, and then C2, C3, F2, F3, G sharp 2, G sharp 3, and C2 and C3. And then this is basically filling in the low end, and then the chords, the notes up here, C4, F4, G sharp 4, D sharp 4, G4, and then C4, D sharp 4, D4, F4, D sharp, G, F, G sharp, and then C, G, A sharp, and C, D sharp, D, F, D sharp, G. Okay, and let me go ahead and bring up the sound map. Adam Sabo says, another typical super saw, however, it's drenched in lots of effects. The cutoff of the filter is also slightly modulated by an LFO to give it some extra movement. So this patch uses two oscillators. Oscillator 1 is 11 stacked saw waves. Oscillator 2 is 4 stacked saw waves. The output of those oscillators flows into a filter that's set for LP all around, and that is modulated. The cutoff frequency is modulated by an LFO with a very slight amplitude and synchronized to 1/8 dotted. And then that flows into the amplifier with the volume being modulated by envelope 1 with a medium attack, 0 decay, sustain at 100%, and a medium release. And then that flows through the effects and then to the main output. For the effects, Adam says, first, one needs some chorus to widen the sound, then some heavy use of phaser to make it have movement and to give it that organic sound. So the first effect in the chain is an EQ with a low shelf 4 dB boost near 175 Hz, and then a bandpass minus 1 dB cut near 2 kHz. And then that flows into the chorus effect with a fast LFO speed and high depth, and that's mixed in at around 47%. And then that flows into a phaser. The phaser effect is mixed a lot lower than the chorus. It's mixed in at about 19% with a slow LFO speed, medium depth, and high feedback. And then it flows into a rather large room reverb with about a 4-second decay, weak dampening to allow the high frequencies in the reverb signal, and the dry wet mix is at 100/5950. And then that flows into the main output. Okay, let's build this patch. Before we build the patch, let me just play through the MIDI clip one more time. That way you can see the notes that are being played. Okay, I'm starting from the initialized patch, so if I play through the sequence, it currently sounds like this. Alright, first thing we're going to do is set oscillator 1 wave stacking to 11. And now we're going to increase the detune amount to 17.5. And next we're going to increase the volume level to 136. and the width to 66.5. Okay, next we want to modulate the volume level with LFO G1. So we're going to modulate this with an LFO. And in this case, we're going to set the LFO amount to minus 100. And what that will cause is the volume level to drop down and then back up to where it's currently set. So it'll modulate somewhere between 136 at highest level, and then it'll go lower than that. And so now with the LFO amp, we want to set that to a fairly low value. Set that to 6.5. In fact, what I'll do is I'll start it at 100 and let you hear it, and then I'll lower it down to 6.5. Now, even at the low value, it's still noticeable, okay? So if I clear the LFO amount here and play it, then I will bring it down to minus 100 gradually. So see if you can hear the difference. Okay, and the other thing to change with the LFO Global is the sync, and we want that at 1/8 dot. In fact, just to demonstrate the difference between the sync times, I'm going to bring the amp up and set it back to 1/4. So here's 1/4. Okay, next we want to add oscillator 2, and for this one we're going to use quad and set the detune amount to 8.5. Set the volume level, bring that down to 98. Set width to 100. And then finally modulate the volume with the LFO. And it's the same LFO that's modulating oscillator 1, which is LFO G1. And set the amount to minus 100. And so now I'll let you listen to oscillator 2 by itself. And then I'll play it again and then bring oscillator 1 in. Okay, next let's address the envelope. We want to give it a long attack because this is a pad, so we will set the pad to 27. The decay time we will set to 0, and the sustain we will set to 100. Finally, we will set release to 32 and bring the velocity scaling to 0. Okay, LFO1, we're going to leave that as is. Now let's add a filter, VCF1, and set the filter type to LP all around. And we're going to lower the cutoff to 100. Notice when I went past 100, it got very dark very quickly. So right at the 100 level, it still retains a little bit of the higher frequencies and still maintains some, not nearly as bright as it starts at with cutoff all the way up, where you hear a lot of the noise, high-end frequencies. But at 100, we still retain some notion of brightness. Finally, we're going to modulate the cutoff frequency with LFO G1. And set the LFO amount to 20. And for this, I'm going to go all the way to the max so we can really hear what kind of effect this is having. So it provides some movement. And then finally, bring the key follow amount up to 15. Okay, that's the basic patch setup for oscillators and the modulators. Now let's move to the effects section. We're going to add an EQ and apply filter 1, the low shelf, give it a 4 dB boost right at 175 Hertz. And filter 2, we're going to apply a minus 1 dB boost between 1.75K and 3 kilohertz. And this one will be using 0 resonance. I'll do the gain first and then the resonance. So minus 1 dB. Okay, next we want to add a mod effects to configure a chorus. So now set the center, we're going to bring that down to 10.5. In fact, let me set the mix first. So I'm going to bring the mix up to 47. And I'll bring the center to 10.5. Speed, I'm going to change that to 84.5. And here what we're doing is really just configuring the overall movement of that chorus effect, the way it feels and sound. And so now with depth, we're going to bring the depth to 92.5. And feedback, bring that down to minus 2. Stereo, we're going to increase that to 100. Quad, set that to 84.5, and Q phase, set that to 85.5. So adding that other chorus, that second chorus, using the quad and Q phase, really thickens up that chorus effect. And that's it for the chorus. So next, let's add a phaser. So add mod effects 2 and set the type to phaser. And I'm going to increase the mix to 19. Set the center to 49, speed to 7, and depth to 27. And set feedback to 74. And set Q phase to 0. Okay, that's it for the phaser effect. Now let's add a reverb. I'm going to set dry to 100 and wet to 5950. Going to increase range to 85 and feedback, set that to 54, making this a large reverb. Okay, dampening we'll leave where it is, and then set the speed to 62.5 and modulation to 68. Can really hear that swirling effect. It's almost like a whistling sound with that reverb there. I want to see which component it's coming from. Is it the chorus or is it the phaser? So let's see. I'm going to disable both. It's the phaser effect. Okay, let me re-enable the chorus. And the last thing to do with the reverb is set the diffusion range, D range, set that to 59.5. We're going to increase that a little bit. And then the speed, bring that up to 67. And the modulation, bring that up to 65.5. So basically adding more diffusion. Okay, and that is the patch. So just to play through it one more time, I'll go ahead and bring these up so you can see. Very, very eerie sounding pad sound there as a result of the chorus and primarily that phaser effect. I'll see you in the next video.